And now, please welcome your Master of Ceremonies for today's luncheon, the Space Foundation Vice President for Washington Operations, Brendan Curry.
Well, good afternoon. And thank you for joining with us today for this lunch. And I know we're all eager to hear from our featured speaker later in the program. Our guest speaker today is Lieutenant General John Hyten, Vice Commander, Air Force Space Command. We are also very fortunate today to have with us his wonderful wife, Laura. So thank you for being with us today. I also want to highlight Brigadier General retired Jim Yeager, Vice President of Cybersecurity Services, General Dynamics Fidelis Cybersecurity Solutions. They are our generous host today, and thank you very much for hosting us today, sir. Well, thank you, and please continue to enjoy the yummy lunch we're having today. And as you enjoy finishing up your meal and beginning your dessert, please join with me in a round of applause for the service provided by our friends here at the Broadmoor. Excuse me. It is my pleasure to once again thank General Dynamics for co-sponsoring today's luncheon. Representing General Dynamics today is Brigadier General Jim Yeager, retired Vice President of Cybersecurity Services, General Dynamics Fidelis Cybersecurity Solutions. Jim is responsible for managing network defense and forensic business area at General Dynamics Fidelis, including their digital forensics lab. In this role, he has led cyber forensics investigations into some of the largest network breaches impacting our industry. Mr. Yeager has also held a leadership role for a wide range of cyber programs, including General Dynamics support for DoD Cyber Crime Center, the Defense Computer Forensic Lab, and the Defense Cyber Crime Institute. Previously, he created General Dynamics Information Assurance and Critical Infrastructure Protection Group, which has developed a wide variety of information assurance tools ranging from the Air Force's intrusion detection infrastructure to the only network-based multi-level security MLS system accredited by the National Security Agency at Protection Level 4 without any waivers. He's a former Brigadier General in the U.S. Air Force, and his military service includes stints as the Director of Intelligence for the U.S. Atlantic Command. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our corporate host, Mr. Jim Yeager.
Well, thank you. It is indeed a pleasure on behalf of General Dynamics to be with you here, not only to sponsor this luncheon, but just to continue the engagement in Cyber 1.3. We've been fortunate to be with you on the ground floor of Cyber 1.0 and to watch the evolution over the past 4 years. In particular, I think this year is really gratifying. Cyber 1.0, we were kind of focused on trying to figure out what cyber was. Obviously, we've all learned a lot over the last several years, and I think it's good to see this year's conference in particular so focused on the operational and even to some extent the warfighting dimension of cyber, looking at things like the potential for a cyber Pearl Harbor, collateral damage from operations in cyberspace. So very focused in that warfighting arena. And with that, I think it's particular relevant that we have General Hyten with us to provide a focus, to continue that focus during lunch. Lieutenant General John Hyten is the Vice Commander for Air Force Space Command. In that context, he and the Commander of Air Force Space Command are responsible for organizing, equipping, and maintaining our warfighting forces both in space and cyberspace. General Hyten brings tremendous experience and perspective to that role. He's served as a leader and a commander, essentially at all levels, squadron, group, wing. He served as a director in a warfighting role in Southwest Asia, as well as numerous staff assignments, and some of them in the acquisition arena, which certainly is critical to us as we move forward with building cyber capabilities in this resource-constrained environment. General Hyten is a leader and has been recognized with a number of awards, including the General Jerome O'Malley Distinguished Space Leadership Award. He's published in this arena and certainly is a thought leader, and so we are very both honored and pleased to have General John Hyten as our luncheon presenter. I understand that he's really going to focus on making sure that we've got the basics nailed down in the cyber warfare arena, so we've got a good platform to then move forward into the future. So, General Hyten, again, it is a pleasure to welcome you.
Thanks very much, Jim. Also, thanks to Elliot and the Space Foundation for setting aside a day to focus on cyber, because it is a mission of Air Force Space Command, and it's a mission that's growing rapidly. It's a mission that's more difficult every day. I see General Wooten out there, RA6. I certainly spend a lot of time, quality time, with General Wooten, trying to figure out the future of cyber. I probably spend more time on cyber, actually, than I do on space, interestingly enough, because just the challenges are so enormous. It requires focused effort to try to just get the ball moving forward, especially in a time of challenging resources. So thanks very much. I just want to pause for a second and say how weird this is, because I was sitting out. Thanks very much for not including the dates in the bio. That was really good. But I was thinking back to when I was a second lieutenant, because when I was a second lieutenant, my first assignment in the Air Force was in Communications Command. There was no such thing as Space Command at the time. So I was a Communications Command, and I had communicators as my bosses. Colonel Bob Hedges was my first commander when I came into force, and he was a significant leader and a significant role model in my life. But I can't imagine he ever thought I would stand in front of 600 people and talk about this subject, because you guys would be nuts to listen to me. But just like in this and everything else that I do, I've been doing it on and off for a while. I've been doing it real hard for the last year, and I have some strong opinions. I can't seem to avoid that, so I'll be glad to share those opinions with you today. Over the last quarter century, space has basically become fundamental to everything that we do in the conduct of warfare. And cyber now is becoming the same way. It's a game changer, like space was a game changer. But the thing about anything that is such a huge advantage, it can also easily become a vulnerability. So we have to defend it. And we have to defend it all the time. And if we don't defend it all the time, we're going to have significant problems as we go forward in whatever situation we find ourselves in. So it takes a focus. So what have we been doing in cyber? Now, I'm going to talk today down in the weeds in a couple areas. I'm going to talk about the AFNet. I'm going to talk about JIE. I'm going to talk about fundamental definitions. I'm going to talk about doctrine. Those subjects are high risk to talk about in front of 600 people at the Broadmoor. They tend to be a little bit dry, but it's important that we go back, as Jim said, to the basics, to understand what those basics are, because if we don't understand the basics, we're going to struggle in moving forward. So in Space Command, we've been continuing to do business more effectively while cutting costs at the same time, and that is a challenge that we all face in the military today. Both Air Force Space Command and 24th Air Force have been working hard to consolidate our services into the Air Force network, into the AFNet, so posture ourselves for future joint enterprise efforts. To date, we're over 60% complete with the AFNet migration, and we project to finish by the middle of next year. We've consolidated over 120 different network entry points into 16 gateways, vastly improving our ability to secure the AFNet, monitor traffic, and defend ourselves. When completed, the centrally managed, homogeneous, and defensible enterprise will save sustainment dollars through the consolidation and standardization, but more importantly, it gives us the ability to defend ourselves. Second, we're gaining ground in normalizing cyber operations in the Air Force. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Welsh, just recently approved weapons systems designations for 6 of our cyber weapon systems. This means the game-changing capability that cyber is going to get more attention and the recognition that it deserves. I spent a lot of time in my career in the Pentagon working through the corporate process, and I can tell you the corporate process is pretty difficult to bring anything through when you don't have a program of record or you don't have a weapon system to tie things to. So we've made that change. We've begun to address that. And we've started integrating the cyber capabilities with other joint capabilities to meet the combatant commander's requirements. We've established a forward presence at U.S. Cyber Command, have begun integrating cyberspace operations with the other combatant commanders as well. Additionally, 24th Air Force has deployed and improved indication and warning capabilities, cataloged the latest cyber threats, and is developing the signatures to load into our defensive systems to protect all DoD networks from attack. We continue to improve 24th Air Force capabilities to command and control our cyber forces. We've normalized and modernized the 624th Operations Center, which is the cyber equivalent of an Air Operations Center, an AOC. That's a huge step forward. This emerging capability gives the 24th Air Force commander effective cyber C2 at the operational level of war, consistent with the other component numbered air forces. We'll continue to develop this important capability in order to be fully interoperable with the other Air Force ops centers. Finally, our MAGCOM staff continues to work with 24th Air Force to standardize training and stand-eval programs, as well as our TT&P, tactics, techniques, and procedures, to improve not only our Air Force internal cyber capabilities, but to ensure that we're fully integrated and emerging with the emerging joint standards for cyber training. Which brings me to the next point, the joint information environment. The information that is the joint information environment, a lot of people think that, I don't know how I got this reputation, but a lot of people think I'm against the joint information environment. I'm not. I'm the biggest believer in that kind of consolidation and that kind of information environment. But I have questions. I have significant questions, and until I can understand those questions, I can't just blindly support the joint information environment and where we're going. And those questions really evolve around the security and the ability to defend the network. And that's what we have spent enormous Air Force resources in order to do. And as we go into the JIE, we need to be confident that we can defend that as well. So, the department is looking to transform not just for effectiveness, but for efficiencies as well. And the vision is the JIE. And the goal is timely access to critical resources, a single security architecture, and centralized and standardized enterprise services. You know, how can anybody argue against that? That's about as basic as it gets. And that's what the JIE really is. But my concern is that we don't have a lot of detail below that top-level description. As the Cyber Core Function Lead Integrator for the Air Force, we're committed to the goals of the JIE, but we need to make sure we don't reset any of the progress we've made in network defense, network security, and cyber normalization. Like I said, I believe in the concept, but I do have some concerns, and here are kind of my big 3 concerns. Number 1, the single security architecture is still undefined. While there's a vision, it has many unknown mission systems and cybersecurity impacts. We have to understand the single security architecture before we can effectively move from the Air Force network into the JIE. Second, and this is even more basic, I still don't know and understand what the environment really looks like. Little been placed into testing, nor are there any operational processes in place. These steps are critical for cyber operations and security. And we still fundamentally haven't addressed resources. For instance, just one element of the JIE is enterprise email. The most basic kind of NIPRNet unclassified email. In order for us to transition from the Air Force network, from the AFNet, to the Joint Information Environment, to Defense Enterprise Email, it's going to cost us somewhere between $100 million and $300 million in order to do that. That's using the DISA costs. How do you come up with $300 million in the current budget environment to make that transition? Now, I go back and I say again, I believe in the JIE. We have to go there. 10 years from now, we're going to be in an enterprise environment. We have to be there in order to defend the defense networks. But we have to answer those fundamental questions. We have to know what the security architecture is. We have to define the environment, and we have to figure out how to pay for it. If we can't do those three fundamental things, we're fooling ourselves. But we can do them, but we just can't continue to push them to the side and say that'll take care of itself, because it won't. We have to do that. Now, there's another subject that I'm a big proponent of, and that's commercialization. I think commercialization can also reduce our need for large server infrastructures. We can push the business costs of maintenance and software updates out into the commercial sector. And I tell you what, when you look at the commercial industry, they do that. They have more resources to put against those problems than we do. So we should leverage those capabilities, and we have to leverage those capabilities. But at the same time, we have to also continue to focus on security and the ability to do our mission. And so we have to balance commercialized services with the ability to establish security, protect ourselves, and balance those things together. Now, we can do that, we can work together, and we can also do that in the joint information environment. And I've sat down with General Hawkins at DISA. He has the same fundamental visions that I just described. It's going to be difficult to get the machine to move in that direction, but we can do it. But it's got to be a partnership between the Department of Defense, the services, the joint community, as well as industry. We all have to partner in order to move that forward. So, what about the framework for how we do that? And I'm going to actually kind of grind down now a little bit further into some details, and I'm going to talk about some fundamental definitions. Because even though Jim said, you know, we've been 4 years and we've matured, we still have some problems, I believe, with fundamental definitions. So, when you look at cyber in particular, our airmen are the best at what they do. We bring combat effects to commanders wherever they go, in air, space, cyberspace. But while our airmen have mastered the ability to communicate through cyberspace, our inability to communicate about cyberspace, the domain, and cyberspace operations in particular, frequently causes confusions and the inability to effectively and efficiently bring cyber capabilities to the fight. It's an extremely sophisticated environment. It's real easy to say it's everything when it's not. It's real easy to say it's IT when it's not. Information systems are global, interconnected, interdependent, and they can be considered in isolation or as a whole. All that is true, and all that just confuses the issue. Our Chief of Staff continues to complain that we talk about cyber using communication terms. I think the term he used was geek speak. Now, I'm a geek, and I admit it. I'm proud of it. That's a great thing. But if you talk like a geek, you better be able to translate it to the warfighters of our Air Force and our Marines and our Navy and our Army, because if you don't, you can't effectively explain the importance of this domain to everything that we do as warfighters. So we have to not just communicate cyberspeak, but we have to communicate cyber in operational terms, and we won't operationalize cyberspace until we operationalize our lexicon. So the key is understanding the difference between cyberspace operations and information technology. Now, that may be an overstatement on my part, but I think it's an overstatement that is important, because those two things are fundamentally different, and when we combine those two things together, we confuse the issue. So we recently have Joint Doctrine Public, Joint Pub 3-12. Huge step in the right direction. It basically defines cyberspace operations in 3 lines of operation: offensive cyber ops, defensive cyber ops, and DoD information network ops. And I'm just going to call that information network operations from here on out, just to simplify it. So, understanding the clear distinction between these 3 elements enables the right mix of capabilities for combatant commanders and allows a combatant commander to get their arms around what we're trying to do. For example, offensive cyber ops, that just reflects our ability to project power through the application of force in cyberspace. It's really that simple. Now, all the things that come with that are complicated, but fundamentally, that's very simple. No warfighter should have a tough time understanding that. Defensive cyber operations is a role where we actively and passively conduct cyber operations to preserve our ability to use friendly cyberspace capabilities and protect our own information. Very easy to understand, straightforward. And then information network operations. That's basically highlighting our ability to configure, secure, operate, and sustain the network to preserve our ability to instantaneously exchange critical information precisely when and where it's needed. And that's the foundational capability that enables every other mission in the Air Force and our sister services. Each of these lines of operations is pivotal in maintaining the freedom to operate in and through cyberspace and enable the exchange of information for space and cyberspace operations. Which brings me to the next point, because I just went through cyber operations and that's fairly simple. The next point is information technology. I don't know why it's so hard to define information technology, but they're often confused with cyberspace and the piece I just walked through. Really, I think we just spent too much time and way too much effort trying to kind of unravel a Gordian knot that is really not that hard. And frankly, I get frustrated by the circular arguments and all the inclusive definitions that come out to try to lump all those things together. All you need to do, really, is go back and read the law of the United States. And the law of the United States in 1996 defined information technology, and it also defined how we operate weapon systems. The weapon systems include information technology. And it's Klinger-Cohen, and it's been around for almost 20 years. And all you have to do is go read that law, and you'll understand what the heck we're talking about. But for whatever reason, people want to reinvent the world, and it's already been invented. It defines IT as any equipment, interconnected system or subsystem of equipment used in, among other things, the storage, movement, transmission, reception of data or information. Anybody have a tough time understanding that? So why is it so hard to understand the difference? I just gave you cyberspace operations and information technology. I gave you definitions from a joint publication and definitions from the law of the land. And we still fight about information technology and cyber operations like they're one and the same. They're not the same. But I tell you what, if we allow these definitions to become more than that, if they become too unwieldy, they lose their meaning and they become weapons in a religious debate between different elements of our force. And every time that happens, it's a mess. And I've been through that mess, and it is not fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, just help us simplify the problem. We have cyberspace operations defined in a joint publication, signed off by the chairman of the Joint Staff. We have Klinger-Cohen that defines information technology as fundamentally different. Please, can we just keep it simple and use those terms and not try to clump everything together? If we do that, life will be much, much better. You know, Klinger-Cohen also helps us with weapon systems, because as you go through the Pentagon, and I've spent way too much of my life in the Pentagon, but if you go through the Pentagon, pretty soon you start thinking that cyber is everything. And if you look at some of the terms that are out there trying to define information technology and cyber, pretty soon you think the F-22 is cyber, and you think an aircraft carrier is cyber, and you think, because gosh, there's an operator and they have a computer, so it's got to be cyber. Ladies and gentlemen, those are weapon systems. That is not information technology. And weapon systems require information technology, they require software, but it's fundamentally different. You know, take GPS, for example. GPS, if you go through the Pentagon, everybody is in charge of GPS. Everybody. But you know, fundamentally, what is GPS? If you haven't figured it out for the last 25 years, GPS is a weapon system. Okay? It operates using information technology, but it is a weapon system just like the F-22, just like the F-35, just like an aircraft carrier. It is a weapon system critical to the defense of the United States, and it needs to be managed as a weapon system. So if you just go back and you take the fundamental definitions of what information technology is, what a weapon system is in Klinger-Cohen, what a national security system, all those things are defined. We don't have to make it up, but we need to stop fighting about it and agree on what it is and move forward. So, that's a lot of stuff. But if you use Klinger-Cohen and you use Joint Pub 312, life becomes a whole lot simpler. There's a lot on the effort to integrate our capabilities into operations for the future. How we present forces to Cyber Command. And if you're going to present forces, because that's what we're really talking about, I wear a uniform proudly because I swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The domains I'm given wearing this uniform is airspace and cyberspace. In the Air Force, we organize, train, and equip forces to allow combatant commanders to fight and win wars. So that's what we have to do in cyberspace as well. And Cybercom is the place where we're going to present forces. So the Department of Defense just endorsed a force presentation model for how we present forces. And it's aligned, son of a gun, with Joint Pub 312. Who would have figured? But in that model, we're going to basically, the services, the Air Force being one of them, are going to have to build mission teams to present mission-ready forces to Cybercom as well as the other combatant commanders. That sounds so simple. You know, it's interesting because everything I say when it comes out of my mouth, to me, sounds so simple. I don't know why it's so complicated. But all we're going to do is build mission-ready forces, align them in mission teams, and allow them to be assigned to combatant commanders, the principal one being Cyber Command. That's all over the news. It's controversial. It's what? That's what we do as a military. We have to have mission-ready forces, and we've decided that national mission teams is the way we're going to present those forces. For our part, we're already working with the Air Staff to get the requisite manning. There's going to be an increase in manning in Air Force Base Command of over 1,000 people in order to do that job. My staff anticipates updates to those manning documents beginning this year that allow us to jumpstart our share of the cyber mission teams. Cybercom's already begun to lay out what kind of team composition they have to have, and our future in cyberspace basically depends on us getting this right, the ability to bring mission-ready forces into the joint fight. So despite the changes ahead, one thing remains certain. The cyberspace domain is a priority for this nation, for the Department of Defense, and for the United States Air Force. Our success on the battlefield is one that depends on the timely movement of information. Maybe in the last 30 years, that's what's made us the greatest military that the world has ever seen. Our adversaries are going to attack our ability to move this information, and they're going to identify this as a key center of gravity, an asymmetric advantage if they can take it out. You know, there's no doubt that our number one greatness as a nation, as a military, is our soldiers, sailors, and airmen and Marines. But if they don't have the information they need to do their jobs, they will not be able to fight effectively. So we must be ready to meet any adversary in cyberspace that presents themselves, from the smallest individual to the largest nation state. So thank you for listening. I appreciate everything all of you do to support our nation, to support our Air Force, and thanks again to the Space Foundation for hosting this Cyber Day. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, General, for those insightful and clearly unambiguous remarks. I think we all appreciated hearing what your thoughts are on all the issues that we're facing as a community. Before we adjourn, I'd like to thank again Jim Yeager and everyone at General Dynamics for sponsoring the lunch today. Thank you. And thank you all for attending today. We'll see you all again in the Colorado Hall. Our next cyber session will begin at 1:15, so see you then. Thanks.